Well, today another lesson learned the hard way. You've heard of firefighters rescuing cats stuck in trees. Well, these Toronto firefighters had to use an aerial ladder truck to rescue a 78-year-old man stuck in a tree. The senior citizen was waiting for his son-in-law to help him cut back the branches, but he got impatient, decided to take on the tree himself. So near the top, he slipped, ended up hanging upside down for nearly an hour. Rescue crews lowered him safely to the ground and warned do-it-yourselfers to leave these big jobs to the pros. Well, every few years we get a new picture of our country, courtesy of Canada's census. And what we've learned from the 2001 census just released is that it's definitely not the same country most of us grew up in. Then, many of us lived in rural areas. Well, today, StatsCan has discovered more than half our population live in just 4 large Canadian urban centres. They are Greater Montreal, the area built around Toronto known as the Golden Horseshoe, in the west, the Calgary-Edmonton corridor, and British Columbia's Greater Vancouver area. And it's not just Canadians moving into these areas. Immigrants are gravitating to them as well. But nowhere more than Toronto. Canada's largest city takes half of all new Canadians, as well as a large chunk of those born here. And that means the stress of coping with population influx is most pronounced in Toronto. Global National's Wilf Dinnick reports.
This is why immigrants come here. Comforting because so many immigrants are already here. Toronto's population keeps growing, and new Canadians are the driving force. Gurdeep Dutt came from India just 3 months ago.
I hear so many things that Canada is a very nice place, something like that. I recently got married here and I got a chance to come here.
A chance she is not taking for granted. Gurdeep Dutt says she'll work hard and one day have her own business. Immigration may be a huge boost to the Canadian economy and to the country's labor force. But there is concern the government has cut back on too many of the programs that help immigrants find jobs. And the worry is, without that help, immigrants will turn to programs like welfare.
They can't find an attachment to the workforce because employers require newcomers to have Canadian work experience. They can't access Canadian work experience if somebody isn't going to hire them.
An old story, but a nagging one for Toronto. It foots the bill. Example, the city pays $20 million alone for immigrant sponsorships that don't pan out.
How many hours per day are you working?
Gurdeep Dutt is taking English, a computer course, and has one other goal.
And I also want that my parents came here and it's a big family, so...
A big family that will keep Toronto growing. I'm Global's Wilf Dinnick reporting.
Well, the 2001 census also reveals the fastest growing place in Canada. It's in Alberta, the fastest growing province, and it is Cochrane, a place that used to be a small town not too far from Calgary, but is now connected to the city with acres of new home construction. Cochrane is 60% bigger than it was just 5 years ago, and now houses 12,000 people.
I've known the town since I was young, and it's just so pretty out here. We're closer to the mountains, and our house is down by the river. It's just quiet. I wanted to get out of the city.
See how much longer he'll be able to do that. So while small towns near cities get swallowed up, the census reveals a continuing exodus from towns and villages that are more remote. In this once rural country, 80% of us now live in larger centers. Global National's Ross Lord met with some of the people in tiny Canso, Nova Scotia, a place like so many where people feel hope lies someplace bigger.
That's how I learned.
For Patrick and Kay Ryan, leaving their relatives behind in Canso, Nova Scotia is an emotional decision.
To my mother. Yeah, that's the worst for me.
You know you need to go for yourself.
Yeah.
But then when you have to stop and look at your family and leave them and go to a place that you don't know anyone.
The Ryans and 300 others were laid off when the local fish plant closed last fall. The plant had filled its chunk of government-given fish quota. Now the Ryans are planning to start a new life in Halifax.
Both of us have potential for jobs that are not in the fishery at all.
I've been looking around a bit. We've been up there a couple times now. Just put out feelers, see what's up there.
By Canso standards, the Ryans are the lucky ones. 23 other property owners are being forced to give up their homes. because they can't afford to pay their property taxes. These two businessmen are among those most hard hit. They declined an interview.
Their neighbors and friends and whatnot, and to sign an order to sell a person, a neighbor's property, is demoralizing for the town council and myself as mayor.
This hardware store has gone under after 50 years of business. The latest casualty, the only family restaurant in town, closed last week.
It's dead. I mean, there's nothing going on. You have 900 people here and 700 trying to get away.
It wasn't always this way. Since it was founded 400 years ago, the town of Canso has been a mainstay in the maritime fishery. Those who are staying for now are desperately searching for answers.
Now, it may not be that there will be abundance of fish. We don't know what God will do, but we are going to trust him.
The last resort for a dying community. In Canso, this is Global's Ross Lord reporting.
And in another part of the country, another small town fighting to stay alive. As we told you first on Global National, Viscount, Saskatchewan is selling its land for $1 a lot in a desperate attempt to try to draw new life. But the census shows the sun continues to set on Viscount. The population is still dropping. The town told us today that so far this year it's had only one inquiry about the dollar lots and no buyers. There's a political dimension to these new numbers as well. We did a little crunching and discovered that with the move to cities, Alberta and BC are underrepresented in Parliament. An MP for every 114,000 people in those provinces. Atlantic Canada, the best represented, with an MP for every 71,000 Canadians. And if you're the kind of person that likes to crunch these kind of numbers, our website, Canada.com, has lots of links. Start sharpening your pencils. One of Canada's best-known skaters is calling it quits, sort of. Canadian skater Elvis Stojko has decided to end his run as a competitive skater. The three-time world champion from Richmond Hill, Ontario, said the Olympics just took too much out of him. But he is going to continue his career on ice as a professional performer. And coming up next on Global National, these people don't have kids and they don't want them either. The growing numbers of Canadians childless by choice.
Closed captioning of this global program is brought to you in part by Hershey Bites. For a big taste, have a little bite.